What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Dynasty Pod, and today we are going to be wrapping up our player evaluations. We're going to be looking at the tight ends, and it's great. We're almost done with our evaluations, Sam, and we're getting close to that combine, so getting more excited.
Oh yeah.
And can't wait. This has been real fun so far. Getting to go in deep on these guys and kind of see where we stand. We've been different on some players. We've been pretty close. Been very far apart from some consensus in terms of the overall fantasy community. So that's kind of interesting. We'll be able to look back on this next year and see where we went wrong and where we went right and how we can improve. So just been a very fun process to kind of start through, But that being said, unless you want to add anything.
Yeah, I was going to just say, and these are obviously just our initial evaluations. Once the combine hits, obviously, that's probably going to change our evaluations of some of these players. Once we get kind of a little bit more of an idea of what kind of draft capital they're going to get as we get the mocks coming out after the combine, it'll be interesting, and then obviously post-draft, once we have landing spots, we're going to have to kind of do a lot of mocks and kind of a reset of our rankings after that too, once we have landing spots. So this is going to be a ongoing process. So we hope you guys just keep tuning in, both on YouTube and on the podcast feed, because we're going to be continuing to talk about this all off season.
Yeah. And that's another good preface for this episode is when this drops, we'll probably be into day 1 or 2 of the combine. So we're doing this before we get anything on these players, any of the measurements or, any of the drills that they're doing. But after this episode, we will be doing a combine recap. And in that episode, we'll be doing all of the players that kind of rise and fall through our rankings as we update them. So our rankings are going to be changing, all the way up until the draft. So we'll keep you guys up to date on that too, because we always want you guys to have the freshest information that we've got. So, but with that now being said, let's jump into our top 6 tight ends of this class here. Consensus top 6, and we'll start with our number 6 guy, Sam LaPorta, who is also he's tied with Darnell Washington. And we'll talk about Sam LaPorta here first. I've got him at 5. You've got him at 6. So, why are you a little bit lower on him, Sam? Why is he your 6? He's just on your
I mean, LaPorta, obviously, so he's 6'4", 250 coming out of Iowa. Iowa obviously has a great history of tight ends, a great history of solid blocking tight ends. But really, if you go and look at LaPorta's tape, I don't see somebody who I see a willing blocker, but not really somebody who's excelling at blocking, which, we've talked about it on past podcasts, I think. But blocking is really critical to being an NFL tight end. It's part of how you get on the field. Though obviously you want to see the pass catching ability as well. Also don't see really an athlete that jumps off the charts. And he's pretty old. He played all the way through his senior year at Iowa. He's Iowa's all-time reception leader at tight end because he stayed there so long. So he's not an early declare. But the things that make Sam LaPorta great, the reason he's in our consensus top 6, at least for me, is really kind of the intangibles. It's the mentality, the way he handles himself, his competitiveness, the guy he's going to be in a locker room. This is like one of those really just franchise cornerstone type guys from a personality perspective and character perspective. And so I think he's absolutely going to be drafted. I think he's going to play in the NFL a long time. I just don't know if he's going to be a fantasy contributor, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's pretty fair because I agree with all the intangible stuff you're talking about. I think overall he's a solid player with not a whole lot of glaring weaknesses. But I think in terms of the downsides to him, I don't really see any flashes. I don't see anything that makes you excited. No big plays, no real potential. So I think I don't want to say high floor, low ceiling, because I don't think the floor is necessarily even that high. but I think he's going to be a fairly decent, maybe tight end 2 for some team. Like you said, could play in the NFL for a pretty long time, bounce around team to team, or just kind of carve his role into a team as a tight end 2. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of bordering on that 5-6 with you. The combine for these tight ends is kind of going to matter a lot to me in terms of seeing how fast they are and what they weigh in and their heights and stuff. So,
I mean, the relative athletic score, which is, that's something that we'll get post-combine, right? Because that's typically we want to use combine measurements for that, is something that's really, really predictive for tight ends. Like, we really want to see a high athletic ability. So obviously combine's going to matter a lot for these guys.
And Sam, to anyone who doesn't know what relative athletic score is, you want to just give them a quick rundown on what that is?
Sure. I mean, I don't know exactly everything that goes into it. Maybe I could pull it up, but it's a way to kind of combine a lot of the things that are measured at the combine. Yeah. Kind of put them all into a single score. Here, I'm pulling it up now just so I can have the formula for you guys.
Yeah, so I'll give an example while you're pulling that up. And
absolutely.
So you're going to have a guy like Darnell Washington who comes in here weighing around 270 to 280 pounds, and he's 6'7", just an absolute behemoth. If he runs somewhere near a 4.6-ish, which is where some people are saying he could run 4.6, 4.7, and then you have a running back who comes out who's about 220 pounds, 5'10", and he runs about a 4.5, 4.6. Even though he has a faster time, he's a lot smaller. So it's kind of like averaging the scores and really showing you how fast they are compared to other people of their size.
That's right. It's compared to other people at that position. So if you have a 10, that means you're the most athletic player who's ever been measured at that position. And so that's what is from 0 to 10. That's what the grading is on. It's comparing to other players at your position. But yeah, like you said, height, weight, vertical, broad jump, 40-yard dash, stuff like that, is what goes into it. So, so it can be something. I have found it to be very valuable for tight ends in particular.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I kind of want to see this because right now I've got him at 5. One of the guy I have at 6 is Davis Allen, who we're not going to talk about on this episode, but stay tuned for the sleepers. I just haven't gotten to enough film on him. I started watching him earlier today before we recorded, and I really liked what I saw in limited spurts. So very excited to see if he tests pretty well at the combine. But yeah, Sam LaPorta I think is just going to be a okay player, and I think he's going to get decent draft capital from all the mocks I've been seeing, and he's going to go probably day 2. Yeah. So I think just the draft capital alone could.
I think probably like 3rd round.
Yeah. So, but now let's talk about our other tight end that we have here in the same range, and that's Darnell Washington. And then I've got him at 7. You have him at 4. And I think I kind of just got to explain off the bat here, because I really do like Darnell Washington as a player. And the only reason why I have him at 7 here is because I am so concerned of the fact that he is 6'7", 270 is his listed weight that I've seen on some sites so far. And he is an unbelievable blocker. He's hands down the best blocker in this class. And that just gives me a little bit of pause because, is a team going to take him for his blocking prowess and he won't see nearly any passing game, like very limited amounts of passing game. We saw this out of Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame a couple years ago, went to the Panthers, great blocker, was used in the blocking game a lot, barely saw any of the passing game, and he's not a viable fantasy option. So obviously Darnell Washington is a freak specimen. If he can run a 4.6 in the combine, and I think he is a good pass catcher. He's got solid hands. I really want to see Darnell Washington succeed in the NFL because I think it'd be really fun. But he's not really the prototypical size of what you see in like a elite tight end. Guys like Kelsey, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, they're around 6'5", 6'6", 250. He's 1 to 2 inches above that and about 20 pounds heavier. So that's the reason why I have him at 7, but I do like the player. I think he's going to be an incredible NFL player, but just for fantasy, it's a big question mark for me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you talked about his blocking. I think even what you were saying might even be an understatement. I think he might be one of the best blocking tight ends that we've ever seen, honestly. Yeah. I mean, he is that good. He's an absolute weapon in the run blocking game. And the thing is, it's like you said, he's going to be used that way. I think he's going to be drafted by a team that needs an improvement in the run blocking scheme more than as a pass catching tight end. He didn't break out as a receiver also until this year. Now, you might say that's because he was behind probably best overall tight end that we've seen in a really long, at least since Kyle Pitts and Brock Bowers. But still, late breakout. I think he does have good hands and body control, but he doesn't have explosiveness or twitch as a route runner. He's very lumbering, obviously because he's a big guy. He's huge, 6'7", 280. So if he succeeds in the NFL, it's probably going to be because he's on the field as a blocker, which I'm very confident he will succeed at as a blocker.
Yeah.
But does he get used as a red zone weapon as well because of his size? But he's not going to be used as a pass catching weapon. He's not going to be that move tight end that you build the offense around. He's not going to be, because George Kittle is a very good blocker, but I don't think that he's going to be used nearly as much like the weapon that George Kittle is used like. So I agree with you. I think it's even possible he gets drafted onto a team that already has a pass-catching tight end. I would not be surprised by that. If he gets drafted by like Atlanta, and they have Kyle Pitts and Darnell Washington, and then Darnell Washington plays more of the blocking tight end role on that team, right? Especially a team like Atlanta that is run heavy and wants, would love to have a 6th O lineman so they can really build that run game. Anyways, so I wouldn't be surprised by that. That's why I have him ranked a little bit lower. The reason I have him high at 4 is just because his ability as a blocker is so special that he's absolutely going to be on the field. So there's obviously potential ceiling of him being a big red zone weapon at least.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so now our number 4 guy, maybe a little bit of surprise to some people who are checking out mock drafts and seeing this guy go late first, and then maybe even ahead of who we think is the number 1 tight end, and that's Dalton Kincaid here. He's coming in as our number 4 tight end, and I've got him at 3. You've got him at 5. So you're a little bit lower on Kincaid in comparison to the rest of the fantasy community. So why is that, Sam?
Yeah. So, this is probably one of the rankings I struggled with the most because you're right in that the fantasy community does have him higher. But honestly, after watching his tape and evaluating some of these other prospects, I'm kind of the opinion that he's being mocked higher mostly because he was a little bit more visible as a prospect than some of these other guys. Playing at Utah, a team that was very good last year, that played some big games. One of his best games was against USC in the Pac-12 championship. So I think he has kind of more publicity in that way, which has led to him going higher in mocks. But honestly, when I compare him to some of these other prospects, I just don't see anything special compared to the other guys other than really his hands. I do think he's probably has the best hands in this class. And he has good route running ability. He's got good speed, good body control. He's very good tight end. I'd be happy to have Dalton Kincaid. But, he's 6'4", 240, so he's a little bit light for his size. He's a little bit lanky for a tight end. He's pretty old, honestly. He played at JUCO before going to Utah. He's going to be coming into the NFL at 24. A little bit older than I would like for a prospect. I think I just worry that he's really going to be pigeonholed as, hey, here's a great pass catcher, but then he's not able to stay on the field because of blocking. Because I think you and I talked about this before the podcast. His blocking is definitely the worst out of the tight ends I evaluated. And I think a little bit of that is he is relatively new to the tight end position. I think he kind of learned it in JUCO and then came to Utah. So I think there's obviously some potential for him to learn more there. But to me, he projects to somebody like an Evan Ingram, right, who's really only a pass catcher. And Evan Ingram has had very good years when he's used the right way, but then he also, I think, struggles to stay on the field. And when he hasn't been, succeeding as a pass catcher, he's had really bad years.
Yeah.
So that's what I would see at Dalton Kincaid. Some years he might be good if he's used in the right scheme, but he's going to have trouble staying on the field as a blocker. So, and his team's going to get frustrated with him as a blocker. I think you see that with Evan Ingram when he was with the Giants. So,
yeah, and obviously, you don't get fantasy points for blocking, but like what you said, if he can't stay on the field, because he really is. I mean, when I watched him, he's just a lazy blocker. I think he's very poor at it. He doesn't put a lot of effort in, just from what I've seen on tape. But that also in part maybe just because he's a little bit of a smaller guy. That's another knock I have.
Yeah, he is. He is relatively small.
He's 6'4", 240. So once again, a little bit under that kind of prototypical size. We'll see what he exactly measures in at the combine, but and
Yeah.
you said he is raw. He's only been playing football since his senior year of high school.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But I do think that he's very good after the catch. He can make people miss. I think his college production is pretty steady. 800-yard seasons, and his hands are really good. So the reason maybe I didn't like him as much when I was watching him on film, but it's still hard if he's going to get that first round, late first, early second capital that some people are projecting. It's going to be hard to kind of turn him over as opposed to some of these other guys like a Luke Musgrave or a Sam LaPorta.
Sure.
So, but we'll have to see where all that kind of shakes out. But for now, I've got Kincaid right in the middle there just because of the draft capital he's getting. But overall, I think a decent prospect, but not as good as some people are kind of raving about right now, Sam. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think it's more kind of where I'm landing on it is probably where he's going to be going, like in rookie drafts. I'm not going to be wanting to pay that price, because I would expect based on the hype around him that he's probably going to be like a second round guy in rookie drafts.
Yeah. And
the next two guys we're going to talk about, I would just much rather have one of them in the third than Kincaid in the second.
Yeah. I
think
that's a good.
That's honestly where I fall on that, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk about this next guy here, and where you said Dalton Kincaid was tough to evaluate for you. I think for me, Luke Musgrave was kind of really hard to evaluate because I've got him at 4.
Absolutely.
You've got him as your 2 here in this class, and I see it. I can see the athleticism. He was a track star in high school. I see the massive catch radius when he plays. He's
huge. He's huge. 6'6", 250.
So I can see the path to success, but I just haven't seen it because we really can't see it because there's not a lot to look at. So
only had 15 career starts.
Yeah, I have 13 here. So, but.
Well, he played 2. He played 2 games last year, but.
Oh yeah, okay. So.
Yeah, but.
I want to see Luke Musgrave go out and do everything at the combine. Some guys they don't do anything. They kind of hold back a little bit, and Luke Musgrave might not because he's kind of one of these top guys getting projected. You can see him fluctuate between the 2 to the 4. So I don't know if he's going to do a whole lot, but I want to see him do a lot because I just want to know kind of what he can do and what the NFL thinks of him. Because if we're getting a green light from the NFL saying everyone thinks this guy's going to be great, I'll hop on board because I do see it. But it's just I'm a little uneasy because maybe there's some other stuff we haven't seen that kind of is a negative. But for me, it was just a little hard to give a full, complete evaluation on this guy that I haven't seen too much of, but I'll let you talk about why he's
sure. Yeah, 100%. For me, it does come back to athleticism. I think he's going to post a crazy high RAS at the combine. Again, I think he's going to run a four in the low 4.5s at the combine. He, on his tape, and granted, he has 2 games of tape from last year, but he's incredible at tracking the deep ball. I mean, those 2 games he dominated. The 2 games that you see, he's like, the entire offense is revolving around this guy. I mean, he dominates on the deep ball, great ball catching, great catch radius. I have that on here too. Like you said, huge catch radius. Good focus, good hands. He's a high-graded blocker. And he has an NFL pedigree too. His dad is a longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL, so he's somebody that NFL teams I think are going to trust because of that, because he's got the NFL relationships. So I think people will be willing to take the risk on it because of that. Really, I'm just very excited about the upside here, and to me, it's like a little bit of what we saw last year, right? We've seen this a lot in previous drafts as well. I'm talking rookie dynasty drafts where you've got kind of a locked and loaded number 1 tight end prospect, and then maybe there's a number 2 prospect. But in my mind, oftentimes that number 2 prospect has fallen short of expectations. I mean, think of Brevin Jordan a couple of years ago. He turned out to be an absolute bust. Yeah. Trust me, I know as a Texans fan. I don't think he's not going to be the starter for the Texans anytime soon, So he's a bust. I can't even tell you who the second prospect was after McBride last year. It wasn't Dulcich though. Who was going after McBride?
That's tough. I don't even remember. I'll look it up. I'll look it up while you.
Okay, you look it up. But it's like that second. So that's kind of a reason why I'm lower on Kincaid is probably because of that. But Musgrave, to me, he's like the Dulcich of this class, right? The late 3rd round guy with the just popping off the screen athleticism and speed, and he's bigger than Dulcich too. So I think his upside's even higher. I get really excited watching Musgrave, thinking about the possibilities with him. He's somebody I'm going to be targeting for sure.
Yeah, it looks here. Jelani Woods.
Jelani Woods.
Jelani Woods, Greg Dulcich, Jeremy Ruckert were the top 4 guys taken in the 3rd round.
Yeah, so Woods has been okay, but I guess there was no clear number 2 prospect.
I would honestly say that McBride was the kind of bust prospect. It's
sure
in terms of.
I think McBride. We might talk about buy low, sell highs at some point. I do think McBride's a little bit of a buy low.
Yeah.
But yeah, compared to Dulcich, absolutely. Yeah.
Just compared to expectations, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably Bellinger looked better than McBride.
Yeah,
Dulcich looked better than McBride. So, yeah, definitely compared to expectations, he's more of a bust. So, and that's the reason I bring that up is because I think that I've learned. And we've talked about this before when we've done mock drafts, but I've learned to kind of find a late round tight end guy that I really like and target him in drafts because there's so much value to be had there.
Yeah.
So Musgrave, to me, that's why he's high in my ranks. He's the guy I'm going to be targeting. Yeah. Well, him and this next guy maybe.
Yeah, I could fully see it, but this next guy is definitely going to be that guy for me.
I'm not going to get him away from you, probably.
Yeah, listen.
You've got him a little higher than me.
As the predetermined tight end whisperer from last year's 2 hits.
Yeah, right? you were right last year. So
I got Dulcich and I got
you.
Okonkwo. Those were 2 of my guys going into the draft, and I like both the landing spots, and I think they turned out pretty well. They look pretty good for fantasy right now. We'll see how they do this year, but this guy, I'm going to put my stamp on him here. Tucker Kraft is our number 2 tight end. I've got him at 2. You've got him at 3. And, man, I just think Tucker Kraft is kind of like the what you have seen version of Luke Musgrave. Maybe not as big, not as,
yeah.
Good.
I mean, he's pretty big. He's 6'5", 250. So
he is big as well. But I think he plays with a level of physicality that we haven't really seen from these previous guys that we've talked about. I think obviously now Michael Mayer is our number 1. So I think Michael Mayer plays with a little bit more intensity, but I see this also in Tucker Kraft's game, and he is a fairly athletic player, and he's also really good after the catch. So I like to see these these tight ends who, once they have the ball in their hand, what can they do after? Because if you're a tight end, you're going to get some of those dump offs, the little passes. Can you make guys miss? Can you kind of bounce off blocks? And when I look at Tucker Kraft's game, that's what I see. And in terms of some of the weaknesses, he's got a little bit of a drop problem. I don't think it's terrible, but it's just something to note. And, you do have to acknowledge that the weak competition he played against, at South Dakota. So could that be one of the reasons why? I don't think so. We've seen it. Like, just an example, Dallas Goedert came out of South Dakota. He played pretty well in the NFL too. So I don't think competition is like a be-all, end-all and why you should stay away from someone just because they're playing well, if it's worse competition. I just from what I've seen in Tucker Kraft, and his season got ended a little early with an ankle injury this past year. So he had a little bit more to play though than Musgrave in terms of putting on tape. But yeah, I really like Kraft. I think just an overall well-balanced player who, if he goes to the right spot, I'm definitely going to be looking to get in that early mid-third round.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The number one thing I saw was his yards after the catch. I mean, he is a beast after the catch. He's elusive. He is impossible to tackle. He's running over guys. Now, like you said, it's hard to evaluate what of that is FCS competition and what is ability. But I mean, he looks elusive for a big guy. I mean, he's not just tall; he's pretty thick too. Yeah. And this guy he's got some moves in the open field. So that was what I loved the most about him, was the yards after catch ability. I thought he was fantastic after the catch. Whereas Musgrave is really kind of a deep ball type of guy, So totally agree there. I thought he was a beast in the trenches, and aggressive blocker is what I have written down. I mean, just going after guys. So I think he's going to be a big weapon there. I don't think he's going to be a liability. Mm-hmm. So that we like to see that. Again, we want to see. Ultimately, this is fantasy, so we're looking for pass-catching weapons, but we want to see.
We want to see opportunity.
Good. Yeah, we want to see opportunity. Exactly. We want to see something that keeps these guys on the field. So I love Tucker Kraft too. Obviously, I'm just a little bit lower than him than you. Probably lower enough that you're going to get him more than me in our rookie drafts. But I did love what I saw of Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, and just like you said with his frame, he's got that wide body at the top, and then he's got the thick leg. It's just everything you want out of a tight end that can, take the blocks, also be a great pass catcher. So I just overall, man, I really, really hoping I hit again, because Tucker Kraft is definitely going to be a guy I'm looking at in the third round. Probably going to be one of the big targets, especially with a little bit of a weaker wide receiver class, where normally that's where you take your shot on receivers, and the running backs are where you go in round 1 and 2. So I think tight end is going to be a good third round target this year.
Like, with the way this class is working out, there's those first round guys for wide receiver, and we probably have our choice of who we're targeting there,
Yeah.
But then, like, in kind of that mid-second round, I'm going to be hammering running back, because it's like the running back depth is so good. I'm going to be looking at running back in the second. Maybe late second, I'll snag a wide receiver I like. And then third, I'm looking at tight end.
Yeah.
So it's like, I really am probably going to be skipping over that whole, like, middle part of the wide receiver draft class.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you get, like, a really good shot at Zay Flowers or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agreed. All right, moving on now to what I would say is the overall consensus one in terms of everyone's board for the most part. When you look at Michael Mayer's tape, you switch it on and you just see a guy that's hard to go wrong with. Whoever drafts Michael Mayer is going to get just an amazing player who's got an unbelievably high floor, in my opinion. I think he's got decent upside. His overall athleticism maybe isn't as good as some of these other guys in the class, but I mean, just in terms of everything else, his route running, his toughness, his physicality, just the same thing where he can make those guys miss when he has the ball just because of how tough he is. In terms of run blocking, this guy is a mauler. He will search out the run blocking because that's just how much he likes that physicality in his game. So it's just a very complete prospect here, and definitely going to be interesting where he goes because I love the landing spot of LA. We just did our mock not too long ago, and he went to the Chargers, and I think that's an incredible spot for him. So if he gets one of these juicy spots, how high will he go? Can he sneak into the first round? Because I'd say right now he's probably like the start of the second. He's an early second kind of guy, maybe late first, but yeah, I definitely I'm interested to see where he goes this year because this is a really good prospect, and I think like a guy like Pat Freiermuth is someone with like a pretty decent floor, maybe not the highest ceiling in terms of just what you're going to get out of fantasy. That could be, in the cards for him. And I could see Michael Mayer, being a long-term player on your Dynasty roster.
Yeah, that's interesting. I totally agree with the high floor. My floor comp for him is like a Cole Kmet. Mm-hmm. But then I would say I honestly think his ceiling is like Mark Andrews. Mm-hmm. I think that he, probably the biggest knock against Michael Mayer is his athletic score is probably going to be lower than most of these guys. He's not quite as athletic. But neither really was Mark Andrews coming in the NFL. He was also kind of a lower athletic score type guy, and he's really found success. So I think that Michael Mayer could be that guy. I think he has that ceiling. But then I agree. I think his floor is probably a Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth. I think he's, is as long as he lands in the right situation. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think his number one ability is just a nose for the end zone, man. His route running ability in the red zone, his ability to get open in the red zone is really special. And so I think that he's going to get a lot of touchdowns in the NFL. That's something you really want with a tight end. He is just really, really, really good in the red zone. So so that's what just popped off on the tape to me. He does have some focus drops from time to time, a little bit slow, like I said. Those are really my only concerns. That's why I think that's what would bring him down to kind of a Cole Kmet 4 to me, is just not being particularly athletic. But if he can kind of get over that, and which she showed in college. Honestly, he showed an ability to make use of the tools that he has in college. So
yeah, and
I'd be excited about the upside.
The Mark Andrews ceiling comp is interesting. I agree in terms of what Mark Andrews does is he gets that high volume, and his nose for the end zone is really kind of what caps it off for him. And Michael Mayer does have that red zone prowess, and of all these guys in terms of getting a high volume and target share in an offense, Michael Mayer is definitely the number one guy in this class who can demand it. So,
and I think with like a landing spot like the Chargers, that's possible, right? Yeah. If he lands with the Chargers, they move on from Keenan Allen, they move on from Mike Williams. I would not be surprised to see an offense that revolves around Michael Mayer, similar to how the Ravens revolve around Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
Right? I would not be at all surprised by that in that landing spot. Now, if he goes to some place like the Packers, I'm probably going to be backing off a little bit. I probably would not be as excited to draft him.
Yeah, and I agree too.
Which is probably the most mocked landing spot.
Yeah. So obviously with the quarterback situation, a little bit more murky there.
Right, just because it's Jordan Love, and I think that offense is going to revolve around Christian Watson as much as you don't like him.
Yeah.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, he was. He kind of shut me up a little bit there in the back half of the season. So.
Yeah. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Turns out.
But
but that happens. We're humble.
Exactly.
Right?
You know what? I took an L. I took an L there. I said I was wrong.
100%.
I'm not afraid to admit it. But hopefully we're not going to be seeing David Bell go out and torch the world.
Oh God, no! I hope not. Jeez, I've already dropped him everywhere, so I really hope not.
So
giving up on him.
That is gonna wrap up our player evaluations for this 2023 class. But once again, definitely not going to be stopping updating our rankings, and we will let you know.
Yeah.
We'll
We're just getting started.
Yeah, exactly. This is the foundation. This isn't the finished house. We're going to be building upon this. The more information we get after the combine and just leading up to the draft, after the draft, all these landing spots, that's where we'll add more and we'll keep you guys updated. So for now, we finally got all 4 core special positions done, and that's going to do it. We've got the combine episode coming up next. That'll be fun. But make sure to like, subscribe, follow us, do all that fun stuff. And you can follow us on Twitter, drop any of your questions there, the Dynasty Pod, at the Dynasty Pod FF. We've also got a voice line that you can leave voicemails, and we will listen to those on the show. So you have a number for that, Sam?
Yeah, you can call us at... Well, I can never remember if it's 856 or 853 the D pod. So give me 1 second. But yeah, you can always call us 856 the D pod. That's 856-843-3763. So call us, leave us a voicemail there. We haven't gotten a voicemail in a while, so we'd love to play one on the pod. Also, you can leave a comment on YouTube, and we'll respond to that as well. Maybe we can answer some questions in the comments on YouTube. So love just some interaction from you guys if you have any thoughts. Yeah.
So that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks for watching, and peace out.